Good morning. It's really nice to see everyone on this chilly morning. I planted some of my squashes, so I'm having to cover them now with this cold and my fingers are crossed. But it's really nice to look out and see people at North Chapel that I'm getting to know better. And as a teacher who's retired, I taught for 31 years in the classroom. I think that was one of my many favorite parts of teaching, was looking out at my classroom and just seeing students that I was getting to know. There are announcements. Does anyone have any announcements before I say my piece about announcements? So if you look in your order of service, please read it, because there are lots of things going on. There's potlucks, new member meetings, resistance singing, etc. So take a look. It's also online if you forget to do that. Beth Malow will be giving the reflection today. The title of her talk is "The Moment for Which You Were Created." And she wanted me to announce that she's teaching a class at Bookstock in 2 weeks, so maybe you'll want to join that talk. Childcare in the parlor is provided by Tatum Barnes. If you are visiting today, we would love to have you sign the guest book. If you're like me, you've been watching the trees lately, like the maples just dropped their flowers. So I think it's appropriate that the opening words are from a story called The Story of Two Trees. Once upon a time, on opposite sides of a small village, there were two trees, an oak and a willow. The oak was tall and strong. It believed it knew everything about what was best for the village. The willow was gentle and swayed with the breeze. It listened carefully to the village children and the birds. One day, a big storm was coming. The oak said, "We must all stay strong and never bend. If we bend, we will break and fall." The willow replied softly, "But sometimes bending can help us survive the storm." They argued and did not listen to each other. Just as the storm arrived, the willow bent with the wind and kept its roots firm. The oak stood tall and proud, but a strong gust broke some of its branches. After the storm, the oak said, "I see now, willow, you were brave to listen not only to yourself, but to the wind and the trees around you. I want to hear your thoughts." The willow smiled, "And I want to hear your strength and courage, oak. Together, maybe we can help the whole village grow strong and safe." From that day forward, the oak and the willow listened carefully to each other, respected their different strengths, and worked together. They taught the villagers that courage is not just standing firm, it's also listening and understanding. We will now have a moment of silence for meditation and prayer. Our speaker today is Beth Malow. I feel so lucky to have gotten to know her in the last couple of years as a friend, an actress, a singer, and as someone who remains curious even in the presence of adversity. I'd just like to let you know that Beth has till 11:10, and so hopefully you'll have time to come up if you want to ask questions. If not, then go to that book stock. Maybe you can ask them there. So, the moment for which you were created. And I'm just going to put this down lower for her. Yes.
Thank you, Marianne.
It's going to make sure this is okay for you. You step up.
Okay, so make sure we get all the AV going. Wonderful. Can everyone hear me? Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, Marianne, and thank you to everyone in this congregation. What a beautiful service this is. I'm so honored to be part of it and to speak to you all today. And it's great to see Michael Zoldis again, too. He was the musical director for Barnart's 2025 production of The Sound of Music. And Marianne and I sang 4-part harmony together as nuns in that production. If any of you got to see it, it was an amazing experience. We actually rehearsed here until it got warm enough to rehearse where we performed. And this is just such a beautiful space. Okay, so you know how you feel when you're preparing to give a presentation, a lecture, or a reflection, and you need some inspiration. You want maybe a confidence boost to keep yourself going. I keep these quotes on boxes, as my son likes to refer to, in my study. So there's "you've got this." I'll just leave them up for you guys. And then there's "be brave," right? And then this has probably become my favorite. "Perhaps this is the moment for which you've been created." Okay, put that guy over here. And you can look at it while I speak. This quote, "Perhaps this is the moment for which you've been created," is actually attributed to the book of Esther, the biblical story of Esther. Esther lived around 500 years BCE. She saved the Jews from annihilation. And in Judaism, we celebrate Esther's heroism each year at the festival of Purim. As a Jewish woman, I became an adult bat mitzvah in 2023, and we take different names. I chose Esther as my name, my Hebrew name, and I did that because I aspire to be Esther in my life. Now, why Esther? The story goes something like this. The king of Persia sought a wife, and he found Esther, and despite her efforts to be hidden, she was discovered, taken to his palace against her will, did not reveal she was Jewish because Jews were not in favor in Persia then. And in fact, the Persian prime minister was plotting to kill all the Jews in Persia. She did not call attention to herself even after the king chose her to be his queen. Her cousin told her about the plot to kill the Jews, pled with her, "You've got to talk to the king, you've got to change his mind. Esther, perhaps you've become royalty for this moment." And she initially hesitated and then thought to herself, "Yes, perhaps this is the moment for which I was created." And she goes to the king. She risks her life by revealing her Jewish identity to him and sways his mind. He orders the hanging of his prime minister and spares the Jews. Now, how did Esther find the bravery, the courage to speak up, to find her voice, to be such a heroine? How do we find that bravery in our lives This story got me thinking about the concept of grace, divine love. It's a well-known concept in Christianity, and it's also known in Judaism. Grace renews us, it strengthens us, it reminds us who we are. Grace allows us to be brave. There's also another principle in Judaism I wanted to share called tikkun olam. It's repairing the world, very similar to what I see in your faith in terms of making the world a better place. There's something in each of us, something each of us can do to repair our world, even if a small thing. Those small things can add up. They can have a ripple effect. Now, sometimes repairing the world involves being brave. Brave, why? Well, it's brave for those of us who see the injustice in our communities and nation and seek to call it out, speaking truth to people and to institutions in power. We're shouting from the top of the mountain, demanding justice. Like those oaks in that beautiful reading, Marianne, we stand tall, we stand strong, and we stand proud. Repairing the world can also take a different form. It could take the form of being down in the valley, seeking to understand others, to build trust with others with whom we differ or who have a differing view of the world. Those willows, they can be pretty brave too. Like Esther, I found my voice and received God's grace to support me when I was in conversations with people who felt differently than me. For example, I'm a doctor, and during COVID in 2021, some people didn't think that masks were needed in schools. I disagreed. I felt they were for safety. However, I was able to get together with a mom who disagreed about masks and agree on the need for better ventilation in schools and certainly better communication around the science of COVID. I also had a relative. I'm a climate change advocate, and one of my relatives didn't see the urgency in implementing climate change solutions, yet was willing to listen to me when I talked about making the world safe for our kids and grandchildren, being a good steward of the environment. I also needed to be brave when I talked to my friends who couldn't understand how those people didn't wear masks or those people didn't see our warming climate as a crisis. As a moderator in a nonprofit bipartisan national organization called Braver Angels, I facilitate workshops to help people, help others learn the skills to talk with each other in a civil way so that we can together bring the temperature down in the room. We can understand each other's worldview. We can get curious, not furious. And we call this courageous citizenship. My actions as a brave bridge builder have informed and infused meaning in my life. But why brave? Well, these days, building that understanding, that bridge building, can be misunderstood. I've had countless friends say some version of, Beth, it is great that you are so nice, but our country is burning down. Literally. Through fears and tears, a friend shared her concerns that the world her children would inherit would be filled with more destructive floods and wildfires. and we've certainly seen tragically those more recently. Beth, how can you talk to those people who voted for that politician? Sometimes the most subversive thing you can do is talk with someone you disagree with. Let me say that again. Sometimes the most subversive thing you can do is talk with someone you disagree with. Why? Well, from an activist standpoint, in order to open minds, you first have to open hearts. People won't hear you unless they feel like you've heard them. And when you do share your beliefs, they'll be rock solid because you've had people question them, poke holes in them. You see your ideas in new ways, and you move from us versus them to we together. As Americans, we can solve this contentious issue. We can solve this complicated issue, whether it be climate change or something else. You create a bigger tent for your causes, and you engage in what's called, by Amanda Ripley, healthy conflict. I believe we need both oaks and willows. Activism and bridge building go hand in hand. We all play a role in repairing the fabric of this world. And as in Marianne's story, oaks and willows need to support each other. When we question what we're accomplishing, when we don't see the good we're doing in the world, whether we're up in the mountain or down in the valley, we need to learn to be able to say to each other, I support you, I lift you up, I understand you, I see things differently. I have a different approach to repairing the world. Yet I understand where you're coming from, your approach, and I'm willing to meet you where you are. So how do you start doing this if you're called to do this work? For me, I connected with people who saw the world differently than me, not just racial, ethnic, religious differences, socioeconomic differences, but also political differences. I found something in common with people. For me, when I lived in Nashville, it was being part of an a cappella women's group and a quartet. In fact, our quartet called ourselves, apropos, On Common Ground. I learned to respect my conservative friends who felt differently than me and their beliefs. As we spread joy in communities, we were committed to our music. We were committed to 4-part harmony, and it was beautiful. Michael, I remember when we were practicing, you said music can be a bridge and can bring people together, and I still believe that. And there are so many other areas that we can bridge through our work together and building community. I noticed on the program today, and I heard Sharon speak about the singing resistance. I wasn't able to get to rehearsals, but when I went to the recent No Kings rally at White River Junction, I found myself singing along with the group. The music was fairly easy to learn, and nobody chided me if I got the notes wrong. So I just found that to be a very powerful experience. So to conclude, we need to find the courage together to respond to Esther's quote. Here it is. Perhaps this is the moment for which you've been created. Why were you created? What is your moment? And in the words of Mary Oliver, tell me, what is it that you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? Thank you very much.